I f***ed up. Hey guys, it's Nick.
Hey, what are we talking about?
Well, let's start from the beginning. So it was Sunday, June 4th. Woke up excited, 7 a.m., wide awake, and I was like, yeah, like what am I doing? I don't have to be at the arena until 1 o'clock, but I actually got a text message from a client of ours, well, client that I was treating, and obviously I was not gonna be treating anyone at that time. So I texted Anthony, I was like, hey, I know you wanna come to the fight, but can you take care of this client? And he's like, yeah, I'll make it work.
Yeah, I took the client, but my response would be like, hey, when's your fight? Am I gonna make it in time? That was, the priority. And after speaking with you, like, oh, okay, I'll do 1 o'clock. Yeah, I'm not gonna go on until 3. I'm like, go ahead, take it. You'll make it in time. Like, you're in the city, you'll make it. I think at that time it was like 35 minutes from where that client was living in the city. I'm like, oh yeah, perfect. 1 to 2, I'll get there by 2:30. But obviously that didn't work out.
I was caught off guard. I think that actually helped me because I got to the arena, checked in around 120, weighed in at 154 and a half, right on the money. 155 was the max you can weigh in. But yeah, I was told like, yeah, you have some time, don't worry about it. Like you're not going on for a little bit. I was going to say hi to some former teammates, former teachers, and I actually got a text from Brian, and he was like, hey, where are you? And I was like, oh, I'm going out now. So I rushed over and I was like, hey, I'm fighting in MMA. I knew that you weren't there yet, but at that point I had to just wipe everything out and just focus in on, it's a fight. They're not gonna be nice about it.
I actually texted you. I was like, oh, he's gonna respond because you guys didn't start yet. It's like taking my time, we had a good time like talking with our clients. I was like, oh yeah, I still got plenty of time. Get in the car, and then I got a call from my brother. He's like, yeah, he just fought the first fight. And I'm like, racing. I'm racing over there. I'm like, wait, his first fight, he was supposed to go on until 3. He's like, yeah, things changed. So I'm speeding by as Nick is doing what he needs to do in the arena.
Yeah, I mean, the last 2 people I saw were my dad and my younger brother, Lino. I was like, I knew there were supposed to be other people. I'm like, yeah, like, listen, like, I can't focus on that right now. Like, you guys got to deal with that. And so I'm waiting online. Actually, in the corner of my eye, because my cousin Chris, he has a presence. He's loud, and I saw him. And he's like, let's go, Nick. You give me a little.
You can do it, Nicky. Kick him in his hairy balls.
The first fight, I mean, it felt good. I mean, my cardio was great. I didn't get tired. My punches were hard. At the end, the competitor, we talked, and he was like, hey, like, you got me with some good shots. I mean, my footwork, everything that I trained and focused on, I displayed that first fight, and it was like, all right, wow, like, all right, cool, great.
How are you feeling inside? Like, you're like going in there saying, I didn't have time to think, I'm good, headgear on, mouthpiece, I'm ready to go. Technique's good. What are you feeling inside? Are you like, now you're pumped, or you're still kind of like in this kind of calm feeling?
I mean, I was smiling. I mean, I was in my element. I as soon as I got like in front of that first opponent, I was like, all right, like, let's go. Like, time to show what all the training you've done. And well, I would say this too. In the back of my mind, I'm like, all right, I have to win this fight because I put all this training in. I don't want to lose this fight, and then, because once you lose, you're out, right? It was like, I want to get my training's worth, I guess you can say, training worth. There's 16 people. If I get to that 3rd round, I have, then I'm guaranteed 4 fights, and I'm like, that would be great, just to display. And at the same time, like, as soon as I got out there though, you're not really thinking about like, oh, I want to win. I'm like, let me just put on a show, and if I can get it out of the judge's hand, then that's gonna be better for me. So that's why I was like, all right, let me try to get the finish, because in MMA, you can submit someone, there was no headshots involved, but you can still like get a liver shot and hurt someone and kind of end that fight that way. So yeah, then won that first fight convincingly, which was awesome, because I was the first fight in that division. So it goes back to like literally not waiting, not getting any breath to sit down. I sat down, hey Nick, you're up.
Your turn.
I think that really gave me a little bit of an advantage. So I'm like, all right, cool. Like, my cardio was good, but now I had a longer break And then going into that second fight, I knew the kid was definitely, he looked more confident. It's like, all right, this is gonna be a little bit of a tougher fight.
But you have your confidence now. You
But
won
yeah.
your first match. Now you've had the rest. You kind of got it off that off your shoulders. It's probably a little less pressure. Similar to like if you're doing public speaking, kind of get that like rush of adrenaline. Like, oh, I'm having a hard time getting my words out, and then eventually you kind of settle in. That's kind of how you're feeling. Even with this confidence, that you have the same amount, if not more, than your first fight. I don't know how that kid's first fight was.
Yeah, I mean, and I was actually, my cousin came over, Chris came over, and you know, we were talking because we were allowed to, and I was like, I'm gonna go submit this kid. That was my mindset, and so yeah, that second fight, you know, I'm going in, doing my thing, landing a lot of leg kicks. In my opinion, I can't confirm it, but I threw this leg kick on the inside, and you can see in the video, he kind of like, he's a little hesitant, put that foot down. So he goes and takes me down, because that's his only option, he couldn't really stand. And I just don't know if he was hurt, so he didn't want to get back up in a way, but he had me in a headlock. So headlock in MMA is, you don't have anything. You know, you can escape out the back. So, you know, from the fight, the footage, I'm sure my dad would tell you that he's like, oh wow, like, you know, like you got taken down and this kid's on top of me. And but deep down, I'm like, I'm not panicking. I'm like, okay, you have nothing. You just have your weight on me. And you see in the video, I'm just taking my time. Like, once I get my hand in there, I'm like, all right, cool. Now I'm popping my head out. As soon as I pop my head out, I'm like, I'm gonna take his back. I'm gonna finish this fight. And I'm going. I get my right hook in. And at that point, it was over. I knew I had the choke right around his neck. And I actually didn't even complete it. I didn't even get my arm here to finish it. I just kept it on my shoulder, and I just squeezed, and you know, you see him tap. And at that point, I'm high. Like, I'm on a high note. Like right now, I'm like, all right, cool. The judges are like, all right, you're in the final four. This is great. And my heart's racing because I'm racing to the arena. My brother Lino's calling. It's like, you just choked someone out. Like, he's on to the third round. And I'm just like, how long is it gonna be from that round ending and his next round? And I'm like looking at the GPS time. There's no traffic. It's
America! Ellen! The break! Oh! This is
literally getting the first parking spot and then running over to get a ticket to then run over to the arena, which Lino told me, once you go in right to the right back corner, you can't miss it. I'm sweating, and I'm probably more nervous than you are after this fight because I don't want to miss. I already missed 2, and technically it could be half of what you're fighting.
Yeah.
I want to see like at least the next 2 rounds. So
yeah.
But I did get there for
Yeah,
the third
you
round.
did that.
Just in time.
Got the Foley twins in the house, baby.
I'm good, I'm high, I'm confident. I'm like, let's go. Like, can't wait for this semifinals fight. And yeah, and then, you know, stuff happened, you know.
My feeling is I'm just relieved that I'm there before the fight actually started to happen. Like, I'm talking to my dad, I'm talking to my brother, I'm talking to our cousin Chris, and they're only saying positive things. I'm like, well, he's about to go on. I'll look at the videos later. Everyone's like, you got 3 phones recording the fight. I'll look at it once this tournament's over. And so I popped a squat, got into my backpack, and was just like, all right, I got a front row view of what Nick's about to do with his third opponent.
I saw the kid that I was gonna fight, and I knew that he was taking people down to the ground. But honestly, I felt confident going onto the ground, so I'm like, oh, I just choked someone out. I'm like, you take me down to the ground, that's gonna be a mistake. You know, that's what I thought going in. So I was like, all right. I said, we're gonna put on a show. He was smart, he backed away from me, you know, and he was waiting for my front kick, because I was landing in that for the first 2 fights, so caught my leg at that point, and then he, you know, it's called a sweep, where you just, you know, I'm standing on one leg and you just chop the leg and I'm gonna fall down, right? Again, whatever, you know, it happens, you get taken down, I wasn't worried about it. You know, I watched the film and that's when I know it happened, but I did not feel it happen when I went down. I only felt it when I started getting up, and then I got onto my, you know, all fours, and his weight is on top of me, and my arm is up in front of me, and I felt it go in and out, and I was like, oh wow, like I was like, my shoulder just came out, like that's not good, type of thing. I brought it back in, and I found my way to, you know, I can't even remember, but I figured out a way to get up, and I was like, all right, well, let's see. I mean, I'm, you know, I can't really use my left arm. Let me like test it out.
And we're watching too, like it's not something that you, like we saw, like a standard, like you're on the floor, like you got taken down.
Yeah.
Like you've done in training or like we've seen. So, and then you pop back up, you know, my dad, all four of us were watching. We're not sitting there saying, yeah, there's something off with Nick, at least not at this point. We didn't pick up on that.
Yeah, he didn't pick up on it. And I mean, I know later on where I'm like, I start like kind of nursing it, like, and I bring it in. I knew it because I couldn't keep it out here. It just didn't feel comfortable. And once I threw that punch, I was like, I knew I didn't have any power, and not that I felt any pain because I didn't. And it was adrenaline was just sky high, which was awesome. By the way, a hell of a drug. So at that point, I'm like, all right, well, in my head, I'm like, I'm gonna finish this fight and I'm gonna try to find a way. That was my mindset. I'm gonna try to find a way to win this. You know, what a story that would be to win with a dislocated shoulder. You know, I got my two legs as weapons and my backhand, and you know, I was trying to throw a leg kick low, then throw it across backhand. I would switch my stance and make this my right hand the jab, and I'm trying to go. Then he took me down again, didn't hurt me, and I felt to go out again. I'm like, oh wow, this thing is really loose.
He took you down on a kick.
Yeah, again. A kick. He caught me.
So like we're sitting there like watching now. We're saying like, all right, something's off here. You got caught with the same kick, unless he's just telegraphing it. It's like, why is he making the same mistake again? We realize something's off, but not realizing yet, like you're not using your left arm. Why are you falling for the same mistake? Why are you going for that move again? Obviously, we would have asked after the fight. And then Lino starts to say like he's not using like that left arm. And that's when we're starting to get in some insight. My initial thought was, hey, he dealt with an injury in training on that same left arm. Like maybe he restrained his muscle and now he can't use it. So that, from the outside perspective, I know we've been treating, we did all this rehab stuff health-wise. If there is an injury, it's just a re-injury, not a shoulder injury, at least not at this point.
I mean, I did have that injury 10 weeks before COC, and then we rehabbed it. And
What injury? What muscle?
It was the brachialis underneath my bicep. So, and I don't know if that played a part in it. When I landed on my elbow, it was forceful, but I thought I broke it with my hand. I thought I landed like this, and I don't know if I just didn't have the full strength in that muscle, that it didn't help support the shoulder. Even though the brachialis is it's attached into my arm, not the shoulder, but it just got overloaded. Whatever, you know, when it came out, clearly a structure in my shoulder got overloaded and it broke, essentially. Even the ref, when we were lining up, he was about to grab my left arm, and I was like, dude, you can't touch that. And he was like, what? I'm like, because I'm dislocating my shoulder. And he was like, what? He was, really? He was like, how? You kept going? I'm like, yeah, like, you know, like I'm gonna, I'll take care of this thing. And he was just asking me like, where do you train? Like type of thing. So in my head, I'm like, I lost a fight, like, damn, like, but it wasn't as convincing as, I guess I probably play it back in my head type of thing, you know. I'm like, but.
And as you play it back in your head, you land, you feel it come out, you're thinking dislocation, or you're thinking tear? What are you thinking at this point?
I know for a fact it was like, oh man, that came out not once, twice. Again, I got lucky that it went back in right away. At that point, I didn't know, maybe things are torn, maybe things are not. You know, after I told ref Nick Pace about a shoulder dislocation, he was like, wow, let's get this taken care of. He called the medical professional and was actually right by our ring, so he wanted to put me in a sling. The reason why I refrained from that is I didn't feel pain at that very moment. It felt unstable, but I'm not a huge fan of slings. I'd rather keep my muscles engaged. And he's like, oh, I really think that you should be in a sling. And I'm like, well, listen, I'm a physical therapist. Like, let's do this. Like, if I feel like I need a sling, I'll come back type of thing. And he gave me an ice pack. So I just, put ice on my shoulder to try to decrease any inflammation. And I walked away and I walked to you and I was like, let's go home and just get some treatment. So on the car ride home, the shoulder's starting to stiffen up. Like it's starting, you feel it now. I'm like, all right, there's definitely damage. It's starting to swell. Like first thing we're doing is, and I told Anthony, I'm like, let's get needles just to kind of help decrease the swelling and keep inflammation as low as possible. You're not gonna obviously eliminate it. There's gonna be pain and swelling, but try to limit that. So
I think at some point now, like we're looking, can you do the same active motion as you did when we first saw you after the injury? coming forward, it's a little bit harder, it's a little less, and then coming out to the side, not even 90, maybe coming out to like 65 degrees.
Yeah.
You start getting to that point, you're like, oh, okay, I'm feeling that thing come out again. All right, pop it down.
I mean, Caroline, who's also a physical therapist.
Yeah, so she's going through the assessment as well. So now we have like 3 PTs, three PT minds going in. Like, all right, what's the first game? Like, I guess the game plan. We got some pain back here. You feel some pain in the front. Let's just at least stimulate these muscles to kind of get things to feel a little bit more stable here. So that was our first game plan.
Yeah, and I mean, our game plan, it's always the same, even for clients too. We just want to keep the muscles active, right? So after the needles, what we did tissue work, right? We did.
Yeah.
So he's just, flushing out any swelling, but also, I wasn't able really to contract too much with my shoulders. I kept telling myself, if I keep my muscles active, my shoulder's gonna be more stable, right? Especially if it came out, the muscles are gonna hold it in place. So that was the goal of the treatment, that on top of getting swelling and limiting inflammation as much as possible, it was also to keep the muscles active.
Like, we looked at different methods of taping. Caroline's pulling stuff up on her phone. It's like, you know what, this seems like this would be the most supportive. We decided on one. It's like, yep, we gave it okay. Popped it on, felt pretty good. And it was like, all right, let's let the body now do the rest, right? Now it's up to the body to do what it needs to do.
Like, I literally couldn't use my left arm that morning, and I'm like, all right, like, I'm brushing my teeth, I'm doing everything in one hand. I actually couldn't get on my scooter, so I'm like, I want to be there for my client. So I drove. I drove down into the city, parked, and walked to my first client. And as I moved it got better. As I activated the muscles, I felt more stable. So then that allowed me to, I really just used a lot of my right arm that day. And then I was using my left hand to, like, when on spots that I couldn't really use my right elbow. But I was able to get through the treatment. I told the client the situation, hey, I'm not gonna get pressure with my left arm today, but I'm still gonna give you a good treatment. And I did the best I could. Day 2, less pain. Day 3, just getting treatment from you, I'm like, all right, I'm in less pain. And then, day 4, I was like, all right, I'm not in any pain anymore. But I was limited. And I'm still limited, where, like, I could show you, like, this is the most I can rotate my arm out. When you look at my right, I can go out all the way. So, and it's not painful, it's just blocked. I literally can't go. I can't go anymore. At that point, that didn't feel good. I ended up reaching out to one of the best doctors in New York City, who I treated some of his clients in the past, so he's a great surgeon, and I reached out to him on Monday. Now, that's a week after the injury. I'm like, hey, I definitely need an MRI. And he's like, hey, come in. I leave at like 6 o'clock. So after I was done treating a client, I rushed over there, and he did an exam, and we were like, all right, let's get an MRI. And now, a little over 2 weeks since the injury, I got the results, and I tore my labrum in my joint, which is just the cartilage that acts like a suction cup for the head of your arm bone here. And because it came out, it ripped that labrum in the front. And there's also a piece of cartilage that's in the joint, which is why I'm limited. So, surgery is needed. I'm working on that right now. I should be getting that scheduled in the next, week or 2. All things considered, it's not as bad. It's the best case scenario, right? There's no rotator cuff muscle, no muscle, everything's functional. They just have to go in the joint, repair the labrum, and with our treatments and rehab, I'm gonna keep my muscles active the entire time, and I'll be back before you know it. So, just to give people the real thing, the authentic thing, everything, from how I'm feeling to what I'm going through to the process, the thought process, give people that real perspective. There's no sugarcoating. And
with the timeline process of going through the surgery, like how the injury happened, to the pre-op stages, to the post-op stages, it gives somebody who is going through something similar, or maybe had just an injury that happened now, and it's like, well, man, how long is this gonna take? How long is this gonna be? Can I get back quicker? It'll give you at least an example of somebody's timeline and their recovery process. So you always have the protocols from doctors, but maybe it can be a little bit quicker. Maybe it's a little longer, but we'll see how your rehab goes, and you can kind of base it off that. With that being said, make sure you hit the subscribe button.
And hit the notification button so you're notified when the video is posted.
We'll see you next time.